time. If you want to review this lecture again later, you can. Sorry, we can't for Tuesday. I goofed. I did not push the record button. So Tuesday and Thursday of last week is available, however. Here's that throat clear. I have to do again. All right. Now, at the end of last time, now those darn bars don't have any gaps in them. All right, as I said last time, we're going to spend the first few minutes today on any remnant, for now, chapter 2 stuff. All right, so you had 2 days to look in the mirror, or however it is you reflect, pun intended, to assess your comfort level with that chapter 2 stuff. You had the 6 top hat questions. You got the self-assessment stuff, that learning curve stuff that you can do. So you kind of know where you're at, or at least you could, depending on whether you're keeping up or just kind of dragging your feet till it's almost test time and then you're going to catch up. Please don't. But anyway, this is another one of those moments to remember when you go over your test that you get on September 15th. Yes, the 15th. I know what the syllabus says the 10th, but I had to change it. Testing center said, no, you can't send them over here on the 10th. Okay, so make sure you mark that in your calendar and not come up here and whatever and say, but Doc, it says in the syllabus on September 10th. Yeah, it does. I think I've corrected that 3 or 4 times now, so make sure that sticks and you don't accidentally show up on the wrong day and not on the right day. All right, I'm stalling a little bit as Amanda picks up these assorted, unconsolidated items. But anyway, again, remember this moment when you go over your exam and say, wow, I missed this chapter 2 stuff. I had several chances to raise my hand or to post online on where I needed help, and I didn't do it. Not good. The old Fram oil filter commercial, pay me now or pay me later. I don't want you to pay me at all in this case. I mean, you already did pay me. You signed up for the course, you paid your tuition and fees. I'm paid. Okay? But do what you need to do either now or later, and later means you need to do it because you missed it and it's going to hurt your grade. And yeah, you need to get it fixed because it could be on the final again. At some point, you want to make sure you don't make the same mistake again. But preferably immediately so you don't make it even once. All right, with that, any questions on the remnant chapter 2 stuff? I posted a question-answer thing that I got by email online. Maybe that helped. Don't email them to me. Put them online so we can make the answer Q&A public. Go online occasionally and see what your classmates have asked about to see if maybe it was something, I should have asked about that. Well, thank goodness Joe did or Sally did. And then, of course, if the answer isn't clear for me or from whatever student might have attempted an answer, well, then add to the thread that says, Doc, sorry, nice thought, nice try, nice effort, I still don't get it. But say a little more than that, like why you don't get it. What part of the explanation is, no, I don't get where you get that 1.8 or that 2.0 or, some lead for me to know why you're not getting it and to start from my explanation. If you just say, help Mr. Wizard, I won't have any idea why you didn't get it or what it is I didn't make clear or what I said the first time didn't work. So give me some help on the feedback and what isn't working specifically. I'm going once, going twice. I don't see any hands up on the chapter 2 stuff. Again, do remember this moment. Okay, and I say remember it not because I want you to feel bad if you didn't ask. I want you to recognize that was a mistake and not to repeat that mistake. All right, here we go on supply and demand. You may recognize these slides. These first few I posted up here on, the 20th, last Thursday. Oh. Thank you. Okay. That button didn't need to be pushed before. Thank you very much. All right. So you may have remember these slides from, I think it was last Thursday. Times go slow sometimes. We got through the first few slides before somebody pointed out to me that supply and demand isn't chapter 2. Well, yeah, it was in the last edition. And anyway, so you say, well, okay, now it's chapter 3. I'm sure of that. I looked in the book. We're cool. All right, so this is one of the big 3, as I call them. Opportunity cost, marginal analysis. You saw some of that on the quiz, the marginal cost. What's that? Well, we'll get into that later in the semester. Here's one of the others, basic skills that you probably need, although we don't use the N word if we can help it. You will benefit greatly going through life having this basic skill up here in the old biocomputer, looking at things from the supply and demand perspective to understand the world around you and to navigate yourself through it a little more effectively and skillfully. Okay, so we talked about specialization in trade. So here we are. We've got all these markets where people are specializing in something, attempting to sell it, okay, and non-specialized in things, and therefore wanting it from someone else and thus attempting to buy it. Okay, so that's what's going on here. We are modeling the exchange that results from specialization, and thus the need, and this, I do mean the N word in this case. If you specialize, you do need to trade, right? You cannot live on the consumption of your own output, can you? Think about what you do for a living. If you don't produce food and shelter both, you need to do exchange, right? You need to go into markets and buy things that you don't produce yourself. Now, your chapter is kind of wrapped around the demand and supply for oil. Okay, cool. The chapter will do oil, I'll do concrete. I like concrete examples. Yes, pun intended again. Sorry. Yes. That's something else I did. There was a radio station in the 60s, yeah, I'm that old, that did groaners, kind of the opposite of jokes. Anyway, I wrote some in and, and they read some of mine on the air. So you can groan. I've solicited groans before. All right, so demand is about the behavior of buyers. Duh. Okay? It's only about the behavior of buyers. If you're looking at demand and one of the questions says something about sellers, well, then it's not about demand. It may affect the quantity demanded, right? But the demand, that's that whole line, right? A line, that's the plotting of a bunch of points with XY coordinates. Okay, so the whole line is demand. Okay, and the demand line shifts back and forth depending on some things called shifters. They'll come up a little bit later in the presentation. Shifters are things that change how much you will buy at a certain price. Well, if the price itself changes, well, then the quantity demanded changes. The demand does not change. All right, so the demand is only about the behavior of buyers. The changes in supply, something about sellers, can affect the quantity demanded, but not the demand. Okay, the demand is peculiar to, specific to, unique to people thinking about buying something, not about selling it. Okay? Oh, this slide reminds me of the little phrase in the middle. I read that in the book, and this slide was produced by the authors of the book. That's a bizarre phrase. See, that's one of those things like, is a function? What? What's a function? Anyway, most of your chapters, not all, as I read them, I detected things that probably would need clarification, either in class or because, students have missed something later because they read a sentence. Anyway, so this is one of those, and I'll just leave it for that file that's in there. And under Chapter 3, there's now, if you haven't seen it yet, as a result of yesterday's email. Oh, yesterday, yeah. So I mentioned that is because some of you are, for whatever reason, not getting my emails. Yes, I sent an email to everybody in class yesterday. If you didn't get it, send me an email, and I will send you back that copy and start monitoring the email you sent to the address you provided to ASAP, because that's where the email is going. Demand curve is a function that shows the quantity demanded at all prices. A demand curve, it's not always curved, it could be a straight line, but the curve is a more generic term, is a line that connects all the points that represent all the combinations of price and quantity that are currently feasible. What does that mean, feasible? Now, if you set this price, the demand curve, the demand line, or the demand schedule will tell you how much you will be able to sell at that price. Okay, as a function that shows the quantity demanded at different prices. See, that's what that means. And I provided several other statements of that in that little file under clarifiers under Chapter 3 in your BB Learn. Right? Because I don't know whether the one that I just said worked either. Or you may have looked at that and said, oh, I thought I understood that, and now you telling me something that means the same thing. Now I don't get it anymore. Well, that happens. So there's several other attempts at saying the same thing in different ways. And remember, that's a good study practice. Okay? And once you think you have something, write it in a different set of words that you think mean the same thing. And if you struggle to do that, that's a good hint, kind of an internal brain hint that no, you really don't get it. If you only can relate to it in one exact set of words, that means you will get that question wrong on the exam, because I guarantee you that the words in the question on the exam will not be identical to the phrase either in your book or to the one that I uttered here in class. There will be, it'll be synonyms for different words, sometimes intentional, sometimes not. It'll be phrased differently. The beginning of the sentence will be at the end, and vice versa. It just happens. Okay. And we'll have some more top hat questions here in a minute. To give you some instant feedback on whether denial is just another river in Africa or whether you're actually getting it. Right? Where, sounds good. Yeah, I get it. Like, oh, I thought I got it. Oops, didn't get it. Okay. So a lot of these slides, I'm just going to put them up there as a fishing for questions thing and give you a quick chance to look at it and see because it's all in your book, and see if you want to ask about it. And then there's others where I'll look at it, and I did before class, and I'll say, this needs, like the last slide, I think this needs a little help. This needs a little bit of a discussion in class from past experience, and then I'll say something about it. With this slide, I don't see anything, but maybe you'll tell me differently in that category. So again, just to get you out of your comfort zone, sadly, I don't like getting you out of your comfort zone, but I need to. This lecture is not about conveying content. Your book does that. This lecture is about fishing for clarification needs, okay, or desires or wants. Okay, on the assumption that you did make the effort to at least skim your book beforehand, this wouldn't be a bad idea to go over that learning curve thing as well. As much as you can. Eventually you need to, right? Why jam it all into the day or two before the test? Right? Spread it out a little bit and do so much as possible before the classroom attempt at clarification. All right, here's where we left off last time. In fact, I think that's exactly where I left off. And then I did that example where I said, just to kind of, caught my sandal there. Okay, I did this example, and I said, you must, as a matter of due diligence, before you do any graph of any kind, including starting this one, think through what each of the things on here stands for. And if you draw a line on there, think through what that line says from left to right generally. There's no reason it has to be from left to right, but just as a matter of protocol, do that. And so I hopefully convinced you that this is the way you should almost never draw a supply line, because it does not say something that you would credibly agree with and say, yeah, that makes sense, yeah. That correctly models suppliers' willingness to supply things for sale. Because, see, that's what the supply line is. The supply isn't the amount that exists, okay? In other contexts, that might be what you mean by the word supply. But S, standing for the word supply, in this case means the amount that sellers are willing to offer for sale at different prices per unit. See, if you didn't think through this, you look at this and you think price, and you think, oh, that's the total amount I'm going to spend. No, it's just a second. It's the price per unit. Okay, and at this price per unit, that's the amount that will be available for sale. Doesn't mean it will sell, right? Because the actual price in the market may be higher or lower than that. But someday it may fall to this level or rise to that level, and then that'll be the amount that's offered for sale. And if it's more or less than the quantity demanded at that price, then there'll be a shortage or a surplus, and the market will adjust and the price will change. That's how the market works. Okay, let me just one other thing before I answer your question. After looking at this for a while, I can't remember who it was, somebody said, Doc, I think I know what's wrong with this model. Okay? It says that some will be supplied even at a price of zero. In other words, some will be given away. You can have some for nothing. Not more than this, but at least this much. And then I said, that's true for one thing, water, because every once in a while it rains. Right? And you get a free drink. Okay, if you want more than the amount you'll get for free every now and then when it rains and you're outside and you look nutty by walking around with your face pointing upward, well, then you've got to have pipes and all that infrastructure, San Antonio water system, to have more than that amount of water and more importantly, to have it on a continuous, dependable basis. Most things, the supply line should do this, right? There's a minimum price per unit before any quantity will be made available. Okay, this is normal, the vast majority of things. This is not unheard of, but rare. Okay, so your due diligence with all graphs is to, okay, what does this stand for? What does this stand for? What are the line or lines on the graph saying? Do they accurately describe the reality that they aim to describe in this particular situation? All right.
So if there was like government regulation on like the minimum quantity produced, would it look like that, or would it have?
You mean if the government's
Like for example, in like a communist community,
yeah.
you have to produce this much amount of whatever product it is.
Yeah, in communist communities, markets are just sort of shadow things. They don't really exist because the government decides the price of everything. But still, I mean, by shadow things, I mean that there still is demand and supply. And if the government sets a price, like in communist countries they do, they don't let the market forces set it, there are shortages and surpluses of things. Just as we normally, a bit back to your original, if there's regulation of the quantity, the only way that can be viable is if you say government, I'm going to say taxpayers, because that's who's footing that bill. Government doesn't have anything on its own, and the only way it has anything is to take it through taxation from us. So if they said, hey, you've got to supply at least this many, well, it takes resources to do that. Somebody's got to pay for those resources, and okay, so it would have to be subsidized to do that. But certainly that has definitely happened. That's one of the reasons that South Koreans and Cubans are very, very poor, and why Soviet communism no longer exists, is it just doesn't work. Central planning in any form by anybody is a total disaster. The price system, which works through freedom, luckily, works really well. Not perfectly, but and because it doesn't work perfectly, there are a lot of government regulations, even in non-communist countries. Some of them help a little bit, some of them make things worse. But that's the nature of a democracy, is people demand things sometimes. They don't know what the consequences of them will be. And politicians want to stay in office. They say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, we hear you. Here's what you believe to be the case. Here's what your vote's going to depend on next time. We're on it. We're going to do it, even if it's a bad idea. If the votes are there, politicians want to keep their jobs. They'll say, oh, well, we'll do it. We'll let you see the consequences, and maybe we'll undo it. I over-answered your question, I think, but I like to have discussion rather than just lecture. Let's see, there was another hand up here. Did you have your hand up? No? You were thinking about it. Okay, anyway. Huh? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I'll just jump the gun a little bit drawing a supply line. But here's a demand line, and, I could draw it as a curve. But just for convenience, let me just draw it as a straight line, because then it touches the y-axis. Okay? This price is the highest price anybody is willing to pay, or a penny lower than that. At that price, no one buys it anymore. Okay? So the demand line is a plot of all the price quantity combinations. And one other thing here, we need to be clear on what Q stands for. Yeah, quantity, but there's a little more to it than that. Quantity per some time period. Okay? So at a price of, say, $4 a bag of Quikrete, a little abbreviation there, here's how much Home Depot and Lowe's and all the other places that sell Quikrete will sell. Okay, you're thinking, will sell? Isn't that supply? No, I'm saying if this price is posted, this is the amount that can be sold. That's the quantity demanded at this price. Okay, and if you lower the price, more will be demanded. Okay? But that would not be a change in demand. See, that's the important semantics that we need to establish here. A change in demand means that we put a little time marker on this, D0. That's the demand now. I think your book starts at D1. But anyway, it doesn't matter. When the numbers get bigger, it means that's later. Okay, so this is the demand now. There are many things that could happen to cause the amount at any given price, including $4, to be more than it used to be. Like, say, the price of rebars goes down. We're getting into the shifters a little bit ahead of the slide, but that's all right, because we'll get into them again. Rebars and concrete are related how? They're used together. The official term for that is consumption complements. Okay, used together. And so if one item used with another item, consumption complements, becomes cheaper, the sales of both increase. In the one case, the demand actually increases. Right? You sell more concrete at $4 a bag when rebars are cheaper than you do when rebars are more expensive. If this was rebars rather than Quikrete, then we wouldn't draw another demand line. We would just say, okay, the rebars go down in price. The quantity demanded is higher. Okay? So, you know what might be useful? We go through these because time is scarce. If I keep rambling on past when you get it, just do this. That'll work, right? Now, I don't know if I did that or not, but I just thought of that. So if you get it before I stop talking, because I can't tell maybe because maybe you're a poker player in a previous life, and so it's like you have this kind of a poker face there. Like, I can't see the light going on. Okay, so just give a thumbs up. Question?
In high school, when we would graph these, we never touched the y-axis either. Or are you saying that we should always start?
No, you don't need to. No, I just wanted to describe this point here, what this is. Like if you draw the demand for water, okay, there's a supply for water way over there. If you draw the demand for water, it should be like this. Because there's a gazillion ways to use water when it's really cheap. Okay, so the line gets flatter and flatter. So as it gets cheaper, more and more things come up that say, oh, it's almost free. Whoa, water my lawn and wash my car every day and take 15-minute showers or half an hour long shower, da-da-da-da-da. Especially in the summer when you can take a cold shower and not freeze. Okay, now, what about this end up here? Okay, again, you got to get in a hurry. Got to be careful here. Okay, so what about this upper end here? Why is it getting vertical? Well, because this is the amount needed. That's the N word, used properly in this case. Most of the time the N word is overstating the truth. But, your body does literally need a certain amount of fluid every day to survive. And maybe you don't drink water literally. You drink some other fluid that's 95% water, whatever. Okay? So this much, no matter how high the price gets, you're going to say, I want it. Right? Because I don't want to die. Okay? But beyond this much, it's not a need. Beyond this quantity, it's like, oh, what's the price? Oh, well, then I'll use it to, whatever. Or I'll use a little more of it to cook than I otherwise would. Or I'll take a little longer shower. Or a little more of my yard will be a lawn rather than rocks, xeriscape. Okay, those are all the things that come in as the demand line goes down and gets flatter. Okay, there are a lot of ways to use water. And see, one way it's free sometimes or treated like it is. If a city, for example, doesn't have metering, they just send you a water bill that says every month, we don't know how much water you used, but it's $50 to have a water hookup. Well, that's free, right? You say, wait a minute, $50 isn't free. But there's no additional charge for additional water. No matter how much you use, it's going to be $50. So for all intents and purposes, that feels free, right? Because there's no effect on what you owe based on your usage. Well, the cities, surprise, cities with unmetered water have massive quantities of water per capita used. Right? Because a person does stuff with water that's convenient and nice and whatever, and they don't see any effect on their water bill. Oh, cool. Right? It could be a huge water bill. What matters is there's no change in the water bill with the quantity going up or down. You take a vacation for the month. You still get the $50 water bill. You didn't use any water. Okay, that... Again, I think, okay, good. The quick learner, I love it. And again, feel free to give the thumbs up while I'm still talking. That's okay. Because again, I just keep going for a little while until experience tells me that I think they got it. But if I can't tell for sure, I might go too far. Okay, so anyway, I'm going kind of bouncing around with the slides here and getting ahead of myself in some cases, but that's okay because we're having a conversation here, not going through slides and things. The slide is just to remind me of things that I probably want to say something about or want to convey to you that, hey, make sure you thought about this as you went through your book. Okay, so that little push of the button, again, that's where we left off last week before I realized that was on the wrong chapter. So looking at this, if the price of oil, they're doing oil now. They're doing oil, I'll do concrete when I'm not directly relating to one of their slides. If the price of oil were $5 a barrel, which, by the way, Saudi Arabia could make money at $5 a barrel. It's a strange thing the way Mother Nature distributed oil in the earth. If you poke a hole in the ground in a lot of places in Saudi Arabia, it'll basically load itself into the nearest tanker. It'll squirt out of the ground and run downhill to wherever the ocean is, and if there's a tanker parked there, it'll fill it up. Whereas here in Texas and around most of the U.S. now we're doing this horizontal drilling, fracking thing that puts us up at the, bring my little laser pointer, that puts us up at the $20, $30, $40, $50 barrel level where, hey, if the price isn't that high, the suppliers aren't going to supply any. I know I'm talking about supply again when there's demand up there, but see, the point is that at different prices, we're signaling to sellers how important it is to have this stuff. At a $5 price, we'd want an awful lot of oil, but we wouldn't have much. Okay, so think about this. You asked a question about government regulation. If the government said, hey, people should have cheap oil, max price, $5 a barrel. Well, the quantity demanded would be very high at that price. But does that mean the quantity consumed would be very high at that price? No, the quantity consumed would be very low at that price. You can't consume it unless it's available to buy. You can demand all you want, but unless it's on the market for you to buy, you're out of luck. California insurance consumers discovered this the hard way a few years ago. And places that have rent control, for apartments, they discover this all the time. Yeah, sure. You can pass a law that says you can't charge more than such and such for this product, insurance policies, or housing in some places, like New York City has some rent-controlled apartments. But you can't force the sellers to provide it. Okay? So there's a shortage of apartments in much of New York City. And guess what happens when there's a shortage? Well, the seller says, I don't have to keep up the apartment very well. I can still charge the same price and have plenty of people wanting to rent it. And so the quality goes down. Shortages drive down quality. The market signal is make more. The outcome of the price control is less is produced. Not fewer apartments and less apartment per apartment. Right? Less in them, less upkeep, etc. All right. Again, I'm off on a tangent a little bit, but hopefully it makes it flow a little better than just going over them, reading them to you and such. All right. We can read demand curves two ways, and again, we can do the thing here that says in the book. You can plug in a price and get back a quantity demanded, or you can plug in a quantity demanded and get a price back that you can sell it for. Let's go over an example from the real world to hopefully convey that in one way, and then we'll go through the next couple slides, and then you'll look at it and say, oh, I get what that says now. There have been times, and because I don't keep up with all of these things that I read in the news from time to time, it could still be the case that the government subsidizes farm commodity prices through what are called price guarantees. Okay, so what does a guarantee mean? Think of the literal meaning of that word. Okay, so the government passes a law that says we guarantee the corn price of $12 a bushel. I have no idea what corn prices actually are. Say $12 a bushel. And what happens if the actual market price is $10 a bushel? The farmer says, you promised it would be $12 a bushel. I used that to decide how much corn to produce. You owe me $2 a bushel. See, that's what a price guarantee means. Okay, so let's see how that relates to this thing about demand line and likewise about supply. Okay, so let's say that this would be the normal price $10. Okay, and the government says, nah, farmers are just not able to get by on that. Okay, we're going to mandate a minimum price, a price floor. By the way, later on we have a whole chapter on this, but this just seemed like a better way to convey this than just going through those slides. All right, so at $12, here's the quantity supplied. Okay, now we're up to the point where we're relating to this slide. What's going to be the market price of that much corn? Corn? I'm talking about corn. How am I using this little nub? Because there's only little nubs available. Little bigger nub. All right. So, we take this Q up to the demand line. See? And let's see, what does that look like? That looks like about 6. Let's not go with 6, because 6 could be confusing. Let's say it's 7. You'll see in a minute why 6 wasn't good, because 12 minus 6 is 6. That's why. All right, so the price was 10. Our political process, in its often infinite wisdom, says, no, the family farms can't make it on $10 a bushel. Somebody must be making it on $10 a bushel, or it wouldn't have been an equilibrium price. The vast majority of farms must be doing just fine at that price, but maybe the old family farm is struggling at that price. The family farm is becoming obsolete. Like it or not, bigger farms are increasingly more efficient than smaller ones are. But we romanticize about the family farm, and we don't want to have farmers kicked off their farms and have to go into the city to get jobs. So we subsidize them. All right, so see, this is that vertically thing. Okay? So at $12, this is the amount, according to the supply line, that will be offered for sale. Okay, we take that quantity up to the demand line to determine what price will exist on the market for all of it to sell. But doc, the lines intersect here. Yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah, we're not at the equilibrium anymore. The government's going to have to spend some money. Us taxpayers are going to fork over some money to make good on this guarantee. Let's put some numbers on this. Let's say this is 100. So that's a nice round number. This was 70. And we don't need the 70 for anything, but just for scale. Okay, and also it'll be on the test when we get to that other chapter. Because, doc, it's the equilibrium. That must be the quantity. Well, yeah, most of the time for most things, but not if we interfere with the marketplace. So the government's going to have to come up with $500 for that price guarantee. All right, farmers says, hey, I sold it for $7 and you promised I'd get 12. $5 a bushel, please. 5 times 100, 500. I love it. Okay. Why didn't I think of that sooner? The thumbs up thing. I saw several thumbs go up there. Yeah, maybe, like in the Roman times, when the gladiators toast. That's what that meant. But, you can do it. Here's like, doc, that didn't work. Maybe like that. Now we'll give it a try. We'll see if it works. Yeah.
I'm confused. I'm not sure why, but as price lowers demand prices.
No.
I'm not sure how to read that.
Oh. Well, I'm jumping the gun a little bit on the slides talking about supply, but I'm assuming you've all read the chapter, so, or at least given it a good skim, so I don't think I'm too far out of line to throw that into this example. We guarantee, right, the producer this amount of money per unit of corn, okay? Dollars per bushel, bushels per year, say. Could be week or day, whatever, but sometime unit down here. So, according to the supply line, if the price is $12 a bushel, 100 bushels per year will be placed out there for sale, will be available to buy. Okay, and if it's and the market price rises and falls to get the amount available sold. Okay, so the market price is going to fall from $10 down to $7 to get these additional 30 units to be purchased by somebody. Okay, one of the things that the market does, the short run effect of the market mechanism, prices rising and falling, is to ration out what's available. In other words, to clear out the market, to prevent shortages and surpluses. See, and that's the signaling part of the market. Okay, as the price rises and falls, to clear the market out, right? In this case, to get these additional 30 units purchased by somebody, that sends a signal for the future of whether you want to make this product or not. See, the price might have fallen. So, well, of course, this is the one that matters as long as the guarantee persists in terms of production. Because the farmer doesn't care whether he gets his money from a U.S. government check or gets it from selling it to the local grain elevator. You know, they want their $1,200. Right? You see where the 12 came from? 12 times 100, $1,200. That's what they're going to get. They get 700 of that from selling it to people who eat the corn. Okay, and then, they get all 1,200 of it from people that eat the corn, but the people that eat the corn only pay 700 out of the 1,200. The other 500 comes from the government making good on its guarantee. Okay, one of the reasons I'm doing this now is to really get you immersed in these graphs. If you just skate over these graphs, you don't see all the information that's in them, you'll struggle. Right? If you see most or all of the information that's in them, they'll come into sharper focus for you. Now, I don't pretend that that's going to happen on the first graph, but repetition, and hopefully it'll increasingly crystallize. Now, cool. All right, good. Fun never ends unless you let it. Remember that. It's well worth living by. All right. There's not much more exciting between 8:30 and 9:45 on Tuesdays and Thursdays than lots of that. Hey, the happy days. I guess you might not have seen that on the networks that it's still running on. All right, so this slide, does that horizontal thing that says, if you specify a price, the demand line will tell you how much could be sold, or would be sold at that price if there was enough stuff available for people to buy. Okay, so I mentioned the insurance thing in California. Somebody wondering about that. See, a few years ago, this may be many years ago now, time flies, the wisdom of California voters was such that they passed a ballot proposition that capped insurance rates. Oh, those evil insurance companies charging so much money. It's not fair. Their prices are too high. Oh, we'll just pass a law mandating lower prices. Well, then they couldn't buy the policies that they wanted to buy. There was a shortage, right? Because the insurance market was reasonably competitive. It wasn't just insurance companies ripping people off. It was, hey, the risks and the claims and all of that were so high that, they had to charge those premiums to be in the market. Well, when the voters in their infinite wisdom said, no, that's too expensive, we'll ban that, it got hard to find a lot of insurance policies. Like if you wanted to get a real cheap earthquake insurance policy as mandated by the proposition, not going to happen. Earthquake, that's California, right? The earthquake probability is pretty high. You want earthquake insurance in California, you're going to come up with some serious bucks to buy that policy because the probability of your home being flattened by an earthquake is non-trivial. There's a good chance it'll happen, especially in some places where, your house on the hill on the stilts, right? The earth shakes a little bit, one of the stilts pop out, and there the whole thing goes. All right, so that's the horizontal thing, and then that's what we just did. Okay? The 25 was like the QS over there. Okay? If there's a certain amount there, we can use this demand line to know what price it will sell for. Okay? Okay, moving right along. Okay, so why is the demand curve downward sloping? Okay, because there are high value uses of things and low value uses of things. And see, that's the nice thing about the market is that one thing, the price, it's kind of like a threshold, right? There it is. If you want to buy it at that price, sure, go for it. So if the price rises, see, then some uses that you might have put it to, you say, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Those uses are not valuable enough. There are substitutes maybe. It's up there. Substitutes down at the bottom. No, I'm not going to buy it at that price. Well, what does that do? That saves it the available amount for those for whom their uses are of very high value. See, so it rations it out, it apportions it to the highest value uses. Okay, now some people would argue, well, not the highest value uses, the people with the bucks. Well, yeah, it's true. You have more votes in the market if you have more income. And some people see that as unfair. Others say those are called earnings. Okay? Income is mostly, not always, earnings. So somebody's ability to buy more than somebody else's, hey, they were maybe more productive. Doesn't mean they worked harder, but maybe they chose better. That matters. Right? What you choose to work at matters at least as much as how hard you work at it. Right? Scarcity matters, right? If there's a gazillion tons of something and you work your tail off to make even more of it, people go, well, I'm sorry you worked hard and strained your back and whatever, but there was already plenty of that stuff out there. I'm sorry you got a degree for teaching. Pulled that out of the blue. There's already plenty of teachers. I'm not saying that's the case, but at times it has been the case. Okay? So what does that do? The price then will fall, right? Increased supply of teachers, lower equilibrium price. And that says, if you didn't want to be a teacher all that bad, maybe you should think of something else, right? If you really want to be a teacher really bad, you swallow and accept the lower price. Again, that's the market at work, rationing out what's available. Right? Making the quantity demanded increase, right? In the case of the teacher example, the lower price, lower class sizes and, cool at that price. Oh, price of teachers is up, maybe we better not hire quite so many and we'll increase class size. Yeah, maybe we'll lean on those taxpayers for some more money to pay those higher prices for teachers and keep classes the size. No, maybe we won't. Tax revolt. They don't want to pay higher taxes, increase class size. Okay, that one piece of information, the price, produces lots and lots of freedom-based responses. No coercion there, just you got to pay more, or pay less. What do you want to do about it? You decide. The price rises or falls so that the amount available in the short run just exactly matches the amount that is desired. Isn't that amazing? Most of those choices that you make out there, there's just enough available. Yeah, there's some things where you might have to wait. You go to a popular restaurant and you still get in there eventually, but you might have to wait an hour. Okay, so they probably could charge more and get away with it. Why they don't, I'm not sure. Right? Cut those lines down a little bit. Charge you more money and less time. Many people would see that as desirable. Yeah, I'd love to pay $1 extra for an entree at restaurant X rather than have to stand there an hour to wait to get in, right? An hour of my time was worth more than $1. There are restaurants like that I don't go to anymore because of that reason. Right? They're too costly to me in time. I would gladly pay for the entree in money what the menu says I would have to pay, but not wait an hour to get in. Okay, I'm rambling a little bit again. It's okay with what we have there. Let's see. Price ceilings create shortages and probably shift some uses from higher to lower value use. Okay, let's go back to one of these other slides. Talk about that a little bit. Let's see, not that one. Not that one. I shouldn't have gone back that far. That one. Okay, so suppose you mandate a price of $5. Quantity demanded is going to be 50. 50 MBDs, I think it means millions of barrels per day. I know Alex Tabarrok, one of the authors, I'll have to get after him about not defining anywhere what an MBD is. Probably in the textbook. I don't remember. I didn't look for that in getting ready for today. Okay, so suppose the price is $5. We see from the graph the quantity demanded is going to be 50. Let's say the quantity supplied at $5 is only 25. Okay, so I need my laser pointer again. Just pretend for a moment, if you're writing this on next to your PowerPoint slides, put a supply line where the 25 and 5 dotted lines intersect. And then, of course, make it slope upward and hit the demand line somewhere. Not critical, but that's what I'm saying. Suppose the quantity supplied at $5 per million barrels is 25, which means 5 hits the supply line at 25. Okay, so there's a shortage now, right, at $5. Quantity demanded is 50, quantity supplied is 25. So, what did I say about not the lowered valued uses anymore? Well, if you can buy it, it's $5. Anybody that values it more than $5 is going to try to buy it. right? Might mean standing in line. Who knows how they're allocating the shortage amount, the 25 that is available out of the 50 that people want to buy. But if let's say it's first come, first serve. Okay, so somebody that only barely values it, say it's $6 a million barrels per day, it's at $6 per barrel, manages for whatever reason, maybe their time isn't very valuable to them, gets in line first. Okay, that means that with the price artificially low through a price ceiling, right, a price cap, different words that mean the same thing, the available oil will not necessarily go to the highest value uses. If it's just a market-determined price, like say $20, right, then the amount available at $20 will exactly match the amount desired at $20, and all the users of it will, by virtue of their voluntary purchase, will be saying it's worth more than $20 to me. All right, let me go back over that again. Let's say there's a ceiling at $5, and as a result there's a shortage, and the quantity demanded is more than the quantity supplied. Some of the uses will be just barely worth the artificially low price, and that will bump users who have a much higher willingness to pay. Maybe you can relate to this better in terms of concerts, because they're habitually underpriced for reasons that are complicated. We won't get into that. In other words, Garth Brooks or somebody like that comes to town, Bruce Springsteen. Long lines to get concert tickets. You know, and they sell out before everybody that wants one gets one at that price. And there's scalpers and all of that address some of that. See, what did the scalpers do? They moved the tickets from people who had got in line quick enough to somebody that didn't want to do that or wasn't in line fast enough or just doesn't have the time, doesn't want to spend the time doing that. And they say, you know, I'll pay you either to stand in line for me or indirectly buy it from a scalper, which means you paid them to stand in line for you. Okay? So, but some of the people going to see the concert will not value it as high as the market equilibrium price would have been, right? Because maybe they were unemployed or whatever reason, and they said I have no problem sleeping in or sleep overnight in December and at the gate, where the ticket window, Their hips don't get sore from sleeping on concrete. They have good sleeping bags, something to keep their opportunity cost from being too high. Okay? So that means some people who don't value the concert as much as others end up going to the concert, and others who have high time costs don't see the concert. Okay? Maybe you were one of those. I don't want to stand in line for hours and hours to go see the concert. I would like to go. I don't want to spend all that time to do it. Okay? So somebody with a low time cost went to the concert and you didn't. Okay, let me go back to where I was. Okay, we did the horizontal. We did the vertical. Okay, that's where we were. Okay. Price ceilings create shortages. Now, let me modify that a little bit. Any price ceilings that create a shortage. A price ceiling that's below the market equilibrium creates shortage. Okay, so for example, in this graph, if we left the market alone, the market price would be $10. A price ceiling set below $10 creates shortage. Price ceiling set at $12 or $15 is going to create a shortage. Now, ceiling, right, can't go any higher than, right, is what a ceiling means. If it can't go any higher than 12, okay, fine, it'll be 10, if that's the market equilibrium. But if it can't go any higher than, say, 7, I use 7 because that number's up there, well, then, okay, it can't go any higher than 7. The quantity demanded will be 100, and the quantity supplied will be, let's say what this number is, say it's 40. Say a shortage of 60 at $7, price ceiling. Okay, and then, the value of a good. What is the value of something? What somebody's willing to pay for it. What somebody's willing to pay for a good depends on the availability of things that meet the same wants and desires. Not exactly perfectly. A pear is not identical to an apple, but it's a fruit, and it's sweet, and people like it in their lunchbox or for juicing or for other things. So it's a consumption substitute. Okay, so if pears get cheaper, well, then apples are worth less than they would otherwise be. Right? Not because they somehow changed. It's still the same apple, but the willingness to pay for them is diminished because, hey, there's those pears that are cheaper now that meet similar wants. I think I covered this. Again, you can do this or this if you, in the discussion of that we just had. Right? The price is high. Only uses worth that or more are going to be forthcoming, will be provided for. The price is low. Well, those uses and others will be sought, will be met by purchases. Now, one of the things you had to learn for a later slide, and I can't remember if it's the same in the book, is that picture up there, that's Air Force One. Yeah, because see the next slide, and you wonder why the rubber ducky is there. See, plastics are made from oil, but the production of toys through petroleum products isn't all that urgent. It's a low-value use, so that's why it's there. Consumer surplus, I wish they, sorry for the use of the term surplus. I didn't make this decision decades ago. It's been called that forever. The buyer's gain from trade. Why do I regret the term surplus? Because I just used the term surplus to describe a situation where more is offered for sale than you end up selling. That's a market surplus. Try not to be confused between the two of them. If you look at it more later on or even in the next few minutes, you raise your hand. Okay, so consumer surplus represented in a model like this is in dollars per year or dollars per whatever time period, right? Because the consumer surplus, say at a price of $12, is this, right? Doc, you're saying this. What is this? What do you mean? Well, the area of this rectangle is the buyer's gain from trade at a price of $12, which that's a 0. Okay. 40 units are purchased. 40 units are worth to the buyers $12 or more, all the way up to, let's say this is 16. Okay, the highest value use of corn out there is 15.9999, right? Just barely short of 16. At 16, there are no more uses of corn worth the price, and so people switch to substitutes or give up whatever use they were putting it to. It's too expensive. The area of this triangle tells us is the sum of consumer surplus of all buyers. See what it says there, the little second bullet point. See, now you could, if you didn't instantly believe that, or that didn't click for you, you could say, okay, consumer surplus is the sum of for all the buyers, so why don't I just find the consumer surplus of each buyer and add it up? Well, that would work. But it would give you exactly the same thing as finding the area of this triangle. All right, let's say that each of these 40 is purchased, one bushel is purchased by one person. Okay, 40 people buying one bushel each at $12. Well, the first person's consumer surplus is here, the second's is there, and so on. 40 gains from trade. The person who loves corn the most gains 3.999, right? 15.999 minus 12. And though the person that's just barely interested in buying corn when it's $12 a bushel gains a penny on the 40th bushel. And so you could add those up and you'd get the same thing as taking 4 times 40 divided by 2. The second one's quicker. Right, and then this slide conveys that. Whoops. Yeah, okay. This is the area between the demand curve and above the price. See, you see where it says the president's consumer surplus? President? Where did he come in on this? Well, that's where you had to recognize from a couple slides ago that was a picture of Air Force One. Right? Because it says moving the president around is pretty high value use of jet fuel, and that's made from oil. Okay? So it's still kind of weird. The president isn't spending his own money on that fuel, so still kind of strange. But anyway, that's the reason it says president there. President just says, take me anywhere, we have trouble everywhere. I think President Eisenhower actually said that on the day when he's feeling a little wacky to his pilot, take me anywhere, we have troubles everywhere. Well, so consumer surplus, probably the demand line is not straight, it's probably curved, and for moving the president around, very, very high gains from trade for the taxpayers in most cases. Now, one other thing with this graph, maybe it's just the way computers are, But you see those little tiny triangles of white, like between 80 and the green bar? That's the part of the consumer surplus too. Okay, so it shouldn't be just a rectangle of green. It should go all the way up to the demand line, because that meets the definition, right? Consumer surplus is the difference between the demand line and the price. And not with them little piece missing, but all the way up there. Maybe they just couldn't draw it with that little green thing with that funny shape in it. Okay, see, because otherwise this thing would have a bunch of little teeth in it here, right? No, it doesn't have any teeth in it. It would look like a staircase. See, and here's an example of where, yeah, we could, for the 90 quantity demanded, we could add the president and Joe and all the other people that are buying oil at $20 a barrel, and that would give us the consumer surplus. Or we could just take the area of the triangle between the price and the demand line, and that would do exactly the same thing. I recommend the second one of those. And you might do it once the other way with a small quantity just to ingrain in you what consumer surplus is for the market as a whole. But do it the easy way when time is an issue like on the test. Okay, so anyway, there it is. See, I did the 16 minus 12, that's 4, times 40 divided by 2, that's 80. Right? 4 times 40 is 160, divided by 2 is 80. That's the same as that calculation that they have there. Okay, 80 minus 20, that's like the 16 minus 12 over there. And then the 90, that's like the 40 over there. Okay, and why divide by 2? Well, because otherwise you're saying that everybody's consumer surplus is the same as the president's. Right? In fact, Joe versus the president, something like that, the typical consumer is halfway in between that. Okay, so that's where the divide by 2 comes. Oh, don't jump the gun here. We've got 4 minutes left. Okay, let's get through a couple more of these. Okay, an increase in demand, what does that mean? That means the line shifts. That means the amount that you could sell at a given price if you're doing horizontally increases, or if you're doing vertically, that means for any given quantity you could sell it at a higher price. Okay, so here's, right, this is a demand increase. The line shifts at $4. You can sell more than you used to be able to. And a decrease in demand goes the other direction. For increases in demand and increases in supply, a good rule of thumb, or decreases as well, especially decreases, get that wrong, think right and left rather than up and down. Let me show you a reason why. Okay, so we put the 0 there to say that's the first one. And okay, is that a supply increase or decrease? It's a decrease, yeah, even though it went up. See, that's why I say don't think up or down. Because that happens every semester. Someone says, yeah, I did the thinking, and my thinking said that the supply should go up, and therefore I drew it that way, and when I put the demand line on there, it told me the price went up, and that didn't make any sense. Well, that's because you drew something other than what you meant to draw. See, this is a supply decrease. How do you tell? Put a price on here. Okay, here's Q0. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Let me just a second. Okay, quantity supplied is smaller at a given price. Okay, so supply decreased. Left for decrease, that'll work for demand or supply. Right for increase, that'll work for demand or supply. And with that, now we are done. Time is up. Do my southern accent. See, I do that with my boys every once in a while to torture them. I read them a book in southern. So I fake a southern accent. Daddy, don't read in southern. No, he put his hands over my mouth and hits me over the head. All right, I'll read in regular English.